Great. All right, so hi, my name is Beth Keithley. I am the Fellowship Advisor in the Office of Graduate Education, and today I am going to talk to you about writing a compelling personal statement. I would love for you to throw into chat. We will discuss. The cool thing about personal statements is that there is a structure that is expected no matter what the personal statement is for. So whether it is for a fellowship or it is for a postdoc position or it is for a graduate school application, there is a structure that is common in personal statements. So when I say that this presentation is somewhat generic, that is because, like I said, the template, the structure, the foundation of a personal statement is pretty consistent across the board. So we'll talk about that. But if you want to throw into the chat sort of what personal statements you were thinking you might have to write, I can anticipate that and pull some examples in that. So if you could just throw that into chat for me as I get started, that would be great. But moving right along, as I said, personal statements, the most common personal statements are ones for graduate school applications, fellowship applications, as some people consider the NIA, the National Institutes of Health BioSketch, that paragraph a bit of a personal statement, postdoc positions, and some jobs are asking for personal statements now. Not all that many. I don't think that's going to be really part of a trend. So lots of personal statements, lots of reasons why you might have to write one. So you should be ready for how to do it. What a personal statement does is for the organization, whether that be the university you are applying to for whatever reason you're applying to that university, or some position within another organization, is that it adds some context to your CV. So I'm sure you have looked at CVs before and, oh, I wonder what that was about. I wonder what happened there. I wonder how that was. And that is the purpose of a personal statement. It also helps the organization link and get an idea of whether you are a good fit for them. Based on your research, your experience, your sort of general thoughts. So that is the reason why organizations ask for them. It's also a really nice way, frankly, also, it's a good way to get a writing sample from you as part of an application without making you submit a paper. For you, it's an opportunity for you to connect as to why you are a good fit for this organization. It will link your personal and professional selves in a way that can be really productive. And frankly, I have found students who go through this thought process and development of the personal statement get a lot out of it in terms of, oh, I really didn't think about that, or, oh, this is really a connection I hadn't made before. That's really cool. What you have to do as part of the planning is answer these questions. What are your short and long-term professional goals? How have these goals developed? How have you already started to meet those goals? And how does this organization, this opportunity fit within these goals? One thing I want to say and make sure I'm very clear on before we get started is when I say personal statement, yes, you are talking about yourself, but how personal you are versus the sort of personal professional realm is completely up to you. And you should absolutely, if there's something that you are not comfortable talking about, you don't have to. And if there's something that maybe somebody else would be uncomfortable talking about, but you're comfortable talking about it, then you should. Also, if there is an elephant in the room, I'm thinking about during the Olympics when I can't even remember her first name, and that's how bad it is. Bruce Springsteen's daughter is an equestrian, and she was an Olympian, and they always referred to her as Bruce Springsteen's daughter. I'm pretty sure that woman cannot do a personal statement without just sort of acknowledging, yes, I grew up with famous parents. So if that is sort of the elephant in the room and you feel like you have to address it, not that I think any of you are Bruce Springsteen's daughter, but you get what I mean. If there's sort of an elephant in the room about your background that you think any of your reader knows and you need to acknowledge it, the personal statement can be a good place to do that. But again, when we talk about personal, this is personal, professional, and anything the advice that, oh, well, if it's deep and personal and traumatic and that makes it more interesting and you should talk about it, that's bad advice. So please don't take that as good advice. That is not good advice. Moving on. So hopefully, having said that, we will not have to touch on that again. However, you do have to plan what it is that your statement is based on those questions. So long-term, short-term goals, and how did you get them? Because as we've mentioned, the organization wants to know that you're a good fit. If they are going to take you on and put resources in and make that happen for you, they want to know it's a good fit. I'm going to talk about most of my personal statement through the idea that they've asked that the prompt you're getting is write a 2-page personal statement about your research and professional goals. That tends to be the common one. I want to pause here to say, though, if you have a particular prompt and sometimes in fellowship applications especially, you get a short answer, you get 3 or 4 short answer questions, make sure you are responding to the prompt immediately, especially if you've only got a short amount of time. But for the longer, more generic, who you are, your priorities, your characters, and your values, that can be kind of what you get as the prompt. And it's just sort of, that's pretty vague. So think about what your long-term and short-term goals are. Think about why you are interested in this opportunity, why you think it would be a good fit. Make sure you're addressing those things in your personal statement. And we'll have some examples, we'll have some exercises, we'll get much more. I just want your kind of, as we're warming up the brain this morning, get you moving into that. What motivates you to do what you do? Why are you interested in this research? There is a million things you could have been doing in your life, and you have picked this area of research. There is a reason why. What was it? What is it? What's the motivation there? And you will want some very specific moments from your experience. If you're kind of not, if you're not sure, or you're just like, I don't know what I want to say, take a look at your CV and just kind of think to yourself, what did I have the most fun doing, or what is my most fond memory as I'm looking through the CV? What are some of the good things that I'm thinking about here? And that is a really good way to get that. What specific moments you want to talk about, that can be a really good way to get that consideration moving forward. I'm going to have these again because sometimes people are like, well, I'm just going to start writing and we'll see what happens. Please don't start writing to see what happens. Make sure you've got at least bullet point answers to these. I mean, none of these are more important than the other ones, but if you're not sure why this organization fits in with your goals, you're going to write a very generic professional statement, and that is not compelling to the reader. They want to feel like they know in their hearts you have not only applied to them, but they want to feel like you have only applied to them. Also, if you've got short-term, and short-term I usually think of as the degree or sort of the next step. And there's, I want this postdoc position so that eventually I can do this. That is, the postdoc position would be your short-term professional goal, and your long-term is that so I can do this. You need to have some idea. It does not have to be super specific, especially your long-term career goal. You do not have to have, I am going to do clinical work on breast cancer in a clinical research hospital in the northeast of the United States. Like, it does not have to be anywhere near that specific, but do you want to do clinical work? Do you want to do research work? Do you want to be in academia? Do you want to be in industry? Do you want to be in research? Just sort of a general, like, when I picture my future, sure, it's a little vague, but these pieces are beginning to fall into place. Some idea that you have a vision, because again, one of the things that the organization is reading for is an understanding of why you're applying, understanding of why it is that you fit into this opportunity. And if you can say this opportunity fits because it is part of my path, that is a lot more compelling than I need to do something, and so I picked this. So make sure you spend some time on these 4 questions. You don't have to share them with anyone as part of the planning process, but you do have to have answers for them before you start writing your personal statement. That being said, and again, I posted the slides in the chat specifically for the next few slides, because at the end of the day, if you get a very vague prompt, write a personal statement, there are 3 things that pretty much everyone wants to see. I have grad schools here because this is especially grad schools and postdocs, but pretty much everyone wants to see service, proof of leadership, and proof of academic curiosity or interest. So if you are completely in doubt as to what it is that they're asking for in the personal statement, these are the 3 things you can focus on. And we're going to just kind of walk through what that means, because I'm not particularly good if you just say, give me some examples of leadership, but I will with this sort of go through, like, what's something that happened where I showed low ego, or what's something where, you showed concern for helping others? What's a project that really kind of showed that, or respecting differences or inclusivity? You don't have to fill in something for every single one of these activities or events. If you're brainstorming, this is a brainstorming tool for you, but I would definitely put in, 3, 4, 5 of these, just little notes to yourself about what activity. What we're trying to do here is find some patterns, some experiential patterns, especially if the looking at the CV didn't really trigger something. You'll find hopefully that the activity events here, as you're working through service, find something, and then as we look at the other 2. So don't just put in one, because we're trying to find patterns. We're trying to find these experiences that you're going to highlight when you're writing your personal statement. Leadership, taking interest in people around you, the ability, when did you deliver results? If you've been in a job interview, you get those questions like, tell us about a time when you had a conflict with outside your department and how you handled it. Kind of those kind of things. That's kind of what you're getting to. Now, your personal statement, you don't want to talk about times outside the department when you had arguments. But if there's some experience where you really learned how to lead, maybe it was as part of, you were put on a project in your research lab, and suddenly you had other students that you were supervising, and you had to do that. And not only is it giving you some leadership, but there was some service as well. You were mentoring less experienced students. You were also presenting yourself as a leader, that kind of stuff. We're just starting to try to look for some patterns. So again, here, you can put in a few things. Now, keep in mind, if you have gone to this and you've answered these questions and you found some things off your CV, you don't need to do this that I'm walking through right now. But if you are still just kind of stuck on the experiences you want to talk about, this is kind of my last ditch. This is a good way of handling it. And then academics, same thing. Just fill in some of these, half, hopefully. Because again, what we're trying to do is find some patterns. What I'm hoping you find, what students usually find, is that when they do those 3 and put in some things, they find some events, some experiences that maybe don't do all 3, but do 2, and can kind of start brainstorming oh, okay, I'm beginning to see how I got these skills, how that happened, how this lab experience or this volunteer experience or this work experience is really going to be something that I need to talk about in my personal statement, because this really clearly did develop some of my skills. So assuming that all makes sense and you've done the planning and you have kind of a general idea of what it is that you want to talk about, it is now time to take that and put it into the expected format of a personal statement, which is really a past, present, and future model. I'll get into more details on that in a minute. The opening paragraph, though, is so incredibly important that I want to spend some real time doing that right now. So one of the things people consistently do in a personal statement, which I wish they would stop, is doing the I have always been interested in, I've always wanted to help people, this very vague opening statement that could apply to literally millions of people. So the idea is, how do we push a little further down the road? I'm not arguing that the point that you've always wanted to help people. If you tell me that is true, I 100% believe you. But that's not really a catching open. That's a very common opening, especially if you're doing something like applying to med school. Like, I've always wanted to help people. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most people who want to be a doctor want to help people. So let's push a little further down that road. So in writing fiction, there is the inciting incident, which actually happens usually closer to the first third of the story. So and that's what I'm kind of looking for. What's your inciting incident? How did you decide X was what you wanted to do? This is an event that happens to you that crystallizes your goals, and as the screenwriting guru said, puts it in motion. So in examples of fiction, Hunger Games, when Katniss's sister's name is drawn and Katniss says that she will be tribute, that's the inciting incident. That is well into the movie, right? That's well into the book. The same thing with Star Wars: A New Hope. Luke Skywalker receives Princess Leia's message, and that is the inciting incident. If you are not a sci-fi person, but you're a rom-com person, the meet cute. So if you're watching season 2 of Bridgerton, when Anthony meets Kate, that's the meet cute. And that happens pretty much a few moments. I mean, that kind of happens a little later at that first dance, right? Like, we kind of know these people before we get them, before we see them together. So whatever you want it to be. I've had some professors who do not think that you have a meet cute with insert field here, that one does not have a meet cute with computer science, but maybe you do. I wouldn't write it like a meet cute, but if you have a moment where you're like, oh yeah, that's when I discovered computer science and that was fun, there it is. So whatever genre kind of works for you, there will be that moment, and that's what I want you to think about. That is more compelling to tell me about, in the case of Luke Skywalker, I always wanted to leave Tatooine, but I didn't have a good reason. I always wanted to leave Tatooine. Okay, well, Tatooine in A New Hope seems kind of like a place people would want to leave. But when I was I got this message, it was this lost message, and I wanted to get it, and everything just sort of rolled together. There you go. That's more interesting. I'll have some later examples, some more specific examples that are not worked up into fiction, because you're like, well, what happens if my sister doesn't volunteer herself? Or what if my sister doesn't get drawn for murder and a death game? That's not really going to happen to me. So I'll have some more realistic examples in a little bit. So that's your opening paragraph where you sort of set the scene and explain how you got to your professional goals, what motivated you. Then you talk about how your experiences encouraged you to apply. Then in the end, you talk about your future career goals as specifically as possible. Again, if you're not that specific, don't make up something that doesn't feel true to you in order to have specific goals. But also, you can tell people what feels true in the moment, and no one is going to come back to you in 20 years and say you were wrong in your personal statement, so we need the money back. So whatever feels true at the moment for your professional goals as specifically as possible is what we want you to do, why you're a strong candidate, and how the school or the organization, the program, is uniquely positioned to help you achieve the goals. That's your outline. The specific format I mentioned is the past, present, and future. You will find there is an overlap. The defining event, I talked about the opening statement here, but it is a look at the past. If you are completely stuck and there's some people who will write any pieces, like I'll write the end and then I'll write the middle and then I'll write the top, and that's great. And for you people, that's great, start writing with the present and then wait to see what the pattern is. If you are like, I have to start at the beginning, and even if I change this draft 800 times, I have to start at the beginning. A good but not great place to start is I've always enjoyed the challenge of, and then talk about your field. And then talk about what it was, what it is about the challenging, the questions of your research and that kind of stuff that's interesting to you. That is not compelling, but it's that should get the juices flowing and get you started. Then you talk about the present. Now, you can sort of past and present. There's a transition as you're talking about what you have done, how you've set yourself up in your field to where you are now, and what you want to do. Usually it's 2 or 3 academic achievements or interests that have put you on your path, that have gotten you to where you are today. In each one, it's more than just what you did. The formula that you discuss the academic or the research events or whatever it is the event, is what you did, what you learned, and what motivated you, how it motivated you to do the next thing. So what you did, what you learned, why it mattered is another way of looking at it. But it's more than just what you did. What you did should be in the CV. You have to give it context, what you learned and how it motivated you to do the next thing. And it could be, I wanted more of this, or it could be, I never wanted to do this again. It's usually something in between, but it can be that dramatic. So that's what you're looking for with that. Now, I know the title of this is Writing a Compelling Personal Statement. And I keep saying, this is the structure that people are expecting. This is what the readers are expecting. And I want to address that because I am very aware of the assignment. Here's the thing. If you give the readers the structure of the writing that they are expecting, they don't focus on the structure. They focus on the story, the information that you are providing them. And so what makes a compelling personal statement at the end of the day is you as a researcher who is doing cool stuff and is going to continue to do cool stuff and is a good fit for the program. And if your structure is such that the readers are confused by the structure of what they're reading, your message gets lost. So a compelling personal statement is a really good message about you presented in a way that readers are expecting. So if you've walked into a house and if I tell you, we're going to go to a house, you have a vision right now of how a house should be laid out. Now, it could be 2 stories, it could be 3 stories, it could be 1 story, it could have the main bedroom on the downstairs, maybe it's on the 2nd floor. There's some amounts of flexibility that you will accept and still be part of a house. But if I told you we were going to a house and I took you to a 20-story skyscraper, you would be like, there's no house here. There's 20 stories. There's a big lobby. This isn't a house. This is a skyscraper. So this structure, this past, present, future with the opening statement and walking through the 1 or 2 research, things like that, is a personal statement, and I expect these things in a personal statement. And once the reader sees things in the personal statement, they relax into the personal statement. So hopefully that made sense. But this is the structure that I highly recommend that you use because this is what the readers are expecting. Now, that being said, if you have one compelling story that you are really just going to go into, or you don't have a lot of words, you don't have a lot of space in order to really get into details, then we can play with some other things. But this is the 1 to 3-page personal statement on your goals and objectives and that kind of stuff. If you don't like the past, present, and future breakout of things, you can also call it the experiences, research, and career goals. You will see that these 2, this is from the MIT site, but you can see that there's a lot of overlap and repetition. I've got the conclusion. Where do you want to go and why? Briefly, what are your long-term career goals? So if you want to call it career goals for the final paragraph and not the future, because that makes more sense to you in your head, That's fine with me. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to argue on semantics. This extra part, I do like. It is part of the past, present, and future model, more specifically as you look forward to how this opportunity is going to work into your long-term career goals. Do make sure you talk about, especially if you're applying for either a postdoc or grad school or a medical school situation, what are you interested in doing? What professors at the place where you want to be, or researchers at the place where you want to be, are the ones you want to work with, and why? A couple of notes on that, because it's a legitimate question and I completely understand it. How many researchers should I mention? Well, I would mention a couple. A lot of times at a university, at many universities, there's the one hotshot rock star researcher that everybody wants to work with. And if that's the only one you mention, you are going to be competing with everybody else. If you do a deep dive, and frankly, that rock star in the, in that department never has to look for a postdoc, like never. There's always more. So if there are a couple of people that you would truly happily work with, I would mention them. Two or three is enough to show that you have done your research and did some diving in and have some real opinions, as opposed to, I'll work with anybody, I'm happy. But just doing one, unless you have already, and this is really for my postdoc and grad school people, PhD grad school, and only doing one, unless you have already talked to that faculty member and already are pretty much assured of a spot, or at least we've been in communication and things seem to be going well, I would recommend, like I said, 2 or 3. But this layout might make more sense to you than the past, present, and future. These are essentially the same format presented in 2 different ways. So see which one works for you and move forward with that. But I want to give choice. Here are some, when I talk about the experience, I really want you to be specific. So here are some examples. I won the physics department laser focus prize. Okay, but most people don't know what the laser focus prize is. I won the physics department prize for the top student in my cohort of 20. Oh, okay. That gives me a little more context as a reader. That is much more effective. I don't need the name of the prize as much as I need a little bit more detail as to what the prize was. Now, that being said, if you win the best dissertation researcher, if you win the best dissertation award for your department, that the name does explain itself, but laser focus doesn't as much. So it's, keep in mind, would somebody outside your school have any idea why that is a good thing? In this project, I collaborated with other group members to develop a user-friendly Python wrapper for a 10,000 line Fortran library. Oh, okay. I understand what that means. That's very detailed and very good. So show the skills that you learned, show the experiences you have, other than I created code fast, that was faster to run and easier to understand. Again, nothing wrong with that, but in terms of, okay, how, what, give me more examples. Keep in mind, this is, and I know you know this, but this is a written document. There's no opportunity for follow-up questions. So you need to have that moment to say, okay, I'm going to say this, but I'm going to dive a little further. I'm going to add a little bit more detail, because I need to give that context to the reader so that they understand why I think this is worth mentioning and what the value was and how this makes me as an applicant a more desirable applicant, because I'm coming with these experiences and these skill sets. Again, and I mentioned this before, and I said I was going to follow up with again, so I'm doing it now. That's sort of what I did. So that's the experience, what I learned, and how it motivated me to move forward. That's this here, or in this way, here's these experiences. As a senior, I received an A in a graduate level course. Okay, cool. And that's cool. and great and good for you. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I think it sounded a little sarcastic. I don't mean it sarcastically. That's great. But here with the meaning, my advanced coursework demonstrated my ability to thrive in a challenging academic environment. A graduate level computational fluid dynamics course challenged me to blah, blah, blah. And then again, in this example, that student would talk about how this graduate level computational fluid dynamic course challenged her to go to the next step. Okay, so after this course that was challenging and you were successful, then what? What happened next? What was your, okay, now that I've done this, I want to do this? That's the question that we want to see. Don't ask your readers to think, because they won't. They're reading. They don't know you. They don't know your experiences. You have to walk them through these things. It might feel obvious to you that if I was a senior in undergraduate and I was taking a graduate level course, I would find that challenging. Yeah, but a reader is not going to just pull that. You have to say that, especially if you're going to say, I got an A in it. Well, couldn't have been that hard if you got an A in it. And again, I don't mean that sarcastically. I don't mean that meanly. And I'm not trying to put down anything. My point being is, if you don't tell the reader what to think about your experiences, you open them up to thinking whatever they want, and it could be wrong. So make sure, and you're like, well, I don't want to insult their intelligence by telling them I took a graduate course and it was hard. You're not insulting them. Because what you're doing is you're giving them meaning, and you're turning that into skills and motivation to move forward. You're just adding that and giving it some scope and context so that the reader can understand, oh, okay, that's cool that you were motivated to take this course. That says that you're motivated to do hard things. You've learned how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and again, challenge yourself and grow your mind. And you learned that computational fluid dynamics was something that you wanted to do. Or you learned that computational fluid dynamics can be used in this other part of research that you're really interested in. So now I'm seeing how the big picture comes together. So hopefully that makes sense. Moving forward. Here's some examples of opening lines. I said they were critically important. I am giving you some examples. I don't think anyone is a good writer. I think people are good editors. You write the first draft and you get it done. But I know there are a lot of people who get it into their head that they're not a good writer, and they just hold on to that. So if that's you, I'm going to give you some examples of some opening lines. Don't steal any of these, but it gives you just some ideas or some context, or hopefully like, oh, okay, this isn't some magic brilliance that I couldn't possibly do. You know, in the sciences, every answer raises new questions. I aspire to make a difference to people's lives, to be the mouth when they have words but no voice. So that is an application to a law school. Physics is bizarre and extraordinary and seeks to explain everything from quarks to galaxies. Obviously, physics student. With recent advances, such as the development of new cancer treatments in dogs, veterinary medicine is full of exciting changes, something I want to be a part of, veterinary medicine. So that's what I mean by an exciting opening line. It's interesting. It's a little further down than I've always been interested. Even the one that, like many, my love of music was first cultivated through my love of performing. And that was an application for music school. But that's what I mean when I say just take it that next step further, take it a couple steps down the road to get the reader a little more interested, to get you to present an opening statement that probably the reader hasn't gotten before, and certainly one that would make you unique. Oh, this is blurry. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize this was going to be blurry. Crud. Well, okay. Let's see if I can find these again. I'm just going to move forward. I will, we've got this chat open. I will put the links to these in the chat. So this is intellectual excitement. So why did you choose your area of research? This was the prompt. How did you choose your area of research? Why is it an exciting area of study? Please do not answer in more than 300 words. So here's this bit of personal narrative because you've only got 300 words. Here is the specific research interest. Oop, and here are the career goals. I'm going to take a second and just hop on to where I got them. See if I can't get a better. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, but I want you to be able to read these. Here we go. It's a little bigger. Okay, we'll go ahead and share this screen now. Okay, good. So now I think you can see this. My interest in the field, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but my initial interest in the field of nuclear materials science stemmed from the knowledge that material performance over time is a limiting factor in nuclear systems of all kinds. Now, some of you are like, that's really your opening sentence, but it is more than I've always been interested in nuclear materials or nuclear material sciences has potential. So again, I want your opening sentences to be unique. I want them to be interesting, but also keep in mind what a exciting opening sentence is very much in the eye of the beholder. So that's another reason why I wanted you to see these actual examples so that I wasn't making up these, very exciting things because I had all this time to do it. So here's the personal narrative that you will notice there's kind of not a lot of personal in this personal narrative, but that is because there's 300 words to answer two questions. Why did you choose your area of study and why is it an exciting area? So you've got like 150 words to discuss either. And then I'm excited to be part of a project which is successful could play a meaningful role in the future of nuclear materials testing, which is a hint of future goals, which is a good idea to add in the situation. So here's the specific research interest. I suspect none of you are nuclear material science, so I'm assuming you don't really want to deep dive into this, but it gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. A successful personal statement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that PDF into the chat right now. So that's that one. And we will look at the other one, which is going to take some scrolling. This is an NSF GRFP. It is from 2017. I will also put the link here and we will share it. Go. So the GRFP statements tend to be a little longer, so you've got more space, but you can see there's the personal narrative in this color. And again, I'm giving you these examples so that you can dive into these examples as you're doing your own. The experiences, you can see they're sprinkled all over the place. But what I want to point out specifically with this is that because this is longer, you are doing subheads. Now, intellectual merit and broader impacts are specific to the NSF GRFP. So you've got broader impacts, outreach, and intellectual merit. That is specific to the National Science Foundation, and that is part of what the prompt is that you need to write to. So this gives you a good idea. Although I'm American, I grew up overseas in both these two countries. In addition to the wonderful opportunities this experience afforded me, it also was very challenging. So this is a bit of a personal statement that the student wanted to share about having to, that the student had to leave the country in the middle of the college experience, and traveling to the US and trying to get that done was a challenge. That goes to one of the other things I want to talk about briefly, and that is when you have, I don't want to say something bad, but you have something, again, when we talk about kind of the elephant in the room, if there is something that you feel like you need to address, there is a gap in your undergraduate experience, or there is a situation where one year you had really bad grades because something happened. If those are things you want to talk about because you know the reviewers are going to think about them, that is something you should talk about with whoever you're working with on your personal statement about the best ways to manage those conversations. But so definitely, I say you should be as personal as you want, and I 100% stand by that. If there's some things because they're weird holes in your CV, or there is just a bad semester, you should address it. How much detail you want to go into is, again, your choice. But if there is a big thing that you're 99% sure everybody's going to notice, you do need to address it in the personal statement. And depending on that, varies so much by situation, that make sure you're talking with somebody, whether it be me or somebody in the Career Center, about, or whoever you're working with on getting your personal statement done, about best ways to address it based on your situation. I said don't make the reader think. 100% don't make the reader think. When you are editing this, when you are reading this, when you are looking over this, it should be abundantly clear the significance of your accomplishments, and that goes to the meaning, and that goes to being specific, so that you don't call it the laser focus award. You talk to as the top student in a class of 20. Okay, that's I understand that significance more. The sincerity of your motivations, the fact that this is something you want to do, the soundness of your future plans, that you have thought about what you want to do as a career, whether it be what you do, where you do it, or both, and that you are committed to those at this moment, that these are what you want to do. And the answer to any prompt they provide. I used this story. I worked with a student on her undergraduate essays, and the question was, there was a door in front of you that will take you anywhere. You open the door, what happens? She wrote a beautiful, like extremely well-written, outstanding, I would have read a novel about it, situation about her and how she felt as she was opening the door. She didn't answer the question. What she wrote was brilliant, but it didn't answer the question. So if they provide you a prompt, answer the question as simply and as clearly and as impactfully as possible, because your readers who are reading these applications literally have a list of questions that they have to rank you on. It's a rubric that they score you on, and if they can't find the answers to the questions on the rubric, you will be penalized in your score. I'm going to touch on sort of a couple of my normal questions that I get about personal statements, while you guys think about other questions that you want to ask. Like I said, I've had the chat open. It's been pretty quiet in the chat, so I'm either super clear or I've put you all to sleep. It's hard to say. But two common questions I get about the personal statement is, how do you know what the school wants to hear? It should be pretty clear in doing your research on the school what they are most proud of and what they are looking for in their students. If you look at the UTD website and just sort of look at our news center, you get an idea of some of the things we are proud of, that we are excited about. And you can use that to put together some patterns. Also, by really doing a deep dive and a careful read of the opportunity that you are writing about, they will tell you what it is that you are looking for, and they want to hear how you fit into what it is that they want. I've touched on the how personal you should be several times, so I'm going to kind of let that go. I just get that question a lot. If you are not comfortable telling them something, you should not. I'm going to real quick go. So careers, We have an outstanding career center here. If you are not taking advantage of that, please start now. You can make appointments with them through Handshake. And I know that's how you got this, that's how you got here. So I know you use Handshake. Please continue to doing them. Of course, I am here for you as well in any way I can help. That's the main UTD address. I'll put my email here. And with that, I'm going to thank you for your time and open this up for questions. I'm going to fulfill my promise and turn off the recording. So give me just 1 second.